Please don't worry, I'm not here as a regulator today. That's how I start every conversation with Airto. I'm actually here as part of the Chief Scientific Advisor's Office. I also chair HSE's disability network, which is called Equal. And it's not an acronym. For once, it's a civil service title, which is not an acronym. Many people have tried, all have failed. In terms of structure, HSE does that top down and bottom up quite well. We have an inclusion and diversity group, which is chaired by a chief executive, Richard Judge, who happens to be an engineer. It has representation from HR, as you would expect. It then has representation from all 4 of our staff networks. So there's myself, the leader of our gender equality network, the leader of our LGBT plus network, and the leader of our race network. All of their titles are acronyms, and I can never remember them. And we act to tell the chief executive what the issues are. And he acts as our sounding board of telling us what's business acceptable or not. And between us, we find a way forward. And that's how we work. They are open discussions. They are genuinely open discussions. They haven't yet turned into a rant, and I'll come back to rants in a minute. And it's great, because when Richard says, that's a good idea, it doesn't take a lot for me then to make that idea happen. And the technology hasn't quite worked, but I'll hopefully show you something in a moment. So what about Equal? Equal's my network. It is my network. I've chaired it off and on for the best part of 20 years, which is far too long. However, on my executive group, I've got 4 people in any other organisation who would be chairing their own network. And as a team, we are award-winning. We won the Brilliant Civil Service Award back in May for making the civil service a brilliant place to work, because of the work we're doing enabling HSE to be the best employer it can be for people with disabilities. And that isn't about us being just the spokesperson for disabled staff in HSE. It's about us actually showing HSE how it's a lot cheaper if you do these things up front. So, as with many organisations, we're undergoing change. Build in requests for everyone updates for occupational health or their workplace adjustments passport as part of that process. Because it means you can factor those things into the change discussions which are ongoing. Rather than going, well, can X do Y, and finding out they can't. Because then you may have an old stack of things to unwind. In terms of a building, we're being renovated and restacked. I've got our building team coming to us, asking us about the new workplace policy. We've never had a workplace policy before. Yes, space is going to go down. It was one of the issues was that it was implicit that adjustments would be in. It was implicit that access would come first, which is great, but we made it explicit. So if someone has, in our new hot desking world, some piece of kit which enables them to work, which can't be moved, they get a desk. That's not a discussion. If they have a specialist chair, they keep the specialist chair. End of discussion. And the message from Equal to everyone else around them is get over it. So someone's got a special chair. Someone's got a special snazzy bit of software. Do you need it? If you need it, we'll be right there telling the world and the wife that you deserve it, but you need it to do your job. If you don't need it, why are you fiddling with it? And that's something called chair envy. It has got a proper name. As a public sector and a civil service organisation, we get the onus put on us from central government to do quite a lot. So there's the Disability Confidence Scheme, which is ongoing, and HSE was recently awarded level 2. There's 3 levels, we'll be going for the 3rd and most exacting level shortly. And again, Equal has been in there from the beginning. We did the original RAG rating of HSE against the standard. That went through our senior management champion, who also happens to be a scientist and a previous chief scientist. We did that RAG rating. We raised concerns about particular areas. HSE could have very easily said that's fine because the first 2 bits of disability confident are just self-assessment. We could almost have gone to level 2 without doing anything. Because of that discussion, and to quote my HR colleague from last Thursday, the friendly criticism and the critical friend which Equal provides, we didn't. We did it properly. So when you hear the scepticism about disability confident, it's real. There are organisations which are ticking all the boxes, getting the fancy logo. HSE isn't one of them. We've actually done it properly. I've mentioned the workplace adjustment passport. This is absolutely key for our staff. It's not mandated. It is something which is very useful. So anyone who has any adjustment in the workplace, be it software, hardware, all the stuff which everyone forgets, flexible working, coming in late, a requirement for a car parking space, those things should go on the workplace adjustment form, because if you change managers, it's a lot easier to talk about what you've already got and what's already been agreed than starting the conversation anew. And when you get that right, and when you get that culture thing right, strange things happen. So I had our head of information technology and facilities come to me last week. He is a digital evangelist of his own quoting, and he's a nerd, and I love him because I'm a nerd too. So we sat there and discussed the iPhone 10 and whether we actually believe in the Face ID thing, and then he said, well, you know what Microsoft are doing? They've taken the Kinect, they've turned it into something the size of a pen, and they're looking to trial it with someone to try and reduce eye strain. Would you be interested in us doing that trial? Yes. We're actually gone from 5 years ago where I would say we were behind the curve to being asked by Microsoft if we can play with some of their new toys. Will it happen? I don't know. There may be 101 reasons why it won't. But the fact we're being asked is a huge positive. But with the health and safety executive, which means I live in a very strange world, our mission could be summarised as preventing disablement and death. And I chair the Disability Network. So I have a huge cultural issue. Our job is to make sure there aren't people with disabilities around which are caused by the workplace. We live in a world of a medical model which says there's something wrong with me. The only things wrong with me are society's perceptions of my disabilities. One I was born with, one I acquired later in life. But sometimes I get to have some fun. So I'm a trustee of a National Children's Heart Charity. And when we have the funds, we take a bunch of kids with heart conditions to the Science Museum. And at the Science Museum, they had a theme of electricity. So I was really loving this, enjoyed a bit of that. And the person stood up and said 2 things. First thing was, if you've got a heart condition, you can't do any of the experiments. And the second thing was, you can only use the foam mats which they provide, which are the really thin foam mats. And I went, well, we'll discuss this first one in a second, but the second one, why? Health and safety. At which point, all of the people who worked for me in the charity took a step back, and I just said, why? And they couldn't give me an answer. And if you don't know it, the Health and Safety Executive has got a Mythbusters page. Go and have a look at it, because I think it's number 161, is the national charity or the National Museum which said you couldn't use foam mats for health and safety grounds. It's rubbish. The reason why it's important for my kids, as I call them, is because a lot of them are on blood thinners, and if they lay on something too hard, they will end up with massive bruising. That's for health and safety risk. In terms of electrical stuff, they never did give me an answer, but they did not give us a discount for next time. So, thank you. I think that's 10 minutes, and I'll chat to you all in the workshop. Thank you.